In the Iron Sphere sect, the Elder Baron expressed concern about Ivan's whereabouts. Jace, Baron's sixth disciple, confirmed that Ivan had seemingly vanished from Namyong Prefecture, suggesting the possibility of his demise. Baron inquired about the task Ivan had been assigned. Jace explained that, upon Wang's request, Ivan was sent to eliminate the District Li County Magistrate. However, the disciple who accompanied Ivan reported that he vanished after entering the magistrate's mansion. Jace mentioned that there was another guest in the mansion who was treated respectfully, speculating that the individual might be an alchemist. Baron considered the possibility that Ivan was attacked by this person, deeming it a reasonable assumption. Jace pointed out that despite Ivan's failure to complete his task, he was still a middle-class heavenly birth alchemist. Jace offered to handle the situation, but Baron cautioned against it, stating that even though Jace was more skilled than Ivan, they could not gauge the abilities of the alchemist who had attacked him. Baron acknowledged that Ivan's demise was linked to matters involving their sect, and thus, he felt responsible for resolving the situation. He decided to personally handle the issue and requested to be taken to confront the individual who had disrupted the ceremony. Jace agreed to accompany and support Baron in this endeavor. At the mansion of District Li, Theo reflected on how his Dharma tools had not matched his skills until now. With his recent advancement, he felt that he finally had the appropriate equipment to complement his abilities. Theo realized that having surpassed the law of spirit energy granted him 500 more years to live before meeting the masters. He understood the importance of diligently practicing and passing on the vitality of yin and yang promptly. Theo acknowledged the significance of mastering the craftsmanship of the River of Thirst by the first master, the string craftsmanship by the fifth master, and the destruction sword arts, emphasizing that these skills should not be overlooked. Theo questioned the purpose of Baron's presence, to which Baron expressed disbelief that Ivan was defeated by a middle-class heavenly birth alchemist, suggesting Ivan had neglected his training. Theo then correctly identified Baron as the Elder of the Iron Sphere sect, to which Baron confirmed his identity. Baron insinuated that Theo must have been informed of his impending arrival by Ivan. Determined to avenge his disciple's death, Baron demanded Theo's life in return. Despite acknowledging Theo's superior Dharma tools, Baron expressed his intent to utilize them after defeating Theo. As they prepared to engage in combat, Baron remarked on the uniqueness of Theo's Dharma tools and proposed beginning the confrontation. Jace, observing the interaction between Theo and Baron, noted that Baron maintained a vigilant stance despite facing a middle-class heavenly birth alchemist, showcasing his cautious nature. Jace recognized that once Baron deployed the spirit barrier, the alchemist's attacks would prove ineffective. In response to Baron's restrained approach, Theo remarked that Baron's leniency in such a life-threatening situation was overly magnanimous. Theo launched an attack on Baron, who easily defended himself, dismissing Theo's skills as mere tricks meant to deceive. In Baron's thoughts, he recognized that the true attack would be concealed within Theo's maneuvers, finding Theo's tactics transparent and straightforward. Baron inquired about Ivan's demise, to which Theo expressed skepticism, mirroring Baron's sentiment. Suddenly, Baron panicked as he realized that the spirit barrier was disintegrating, causing his energy to dissipate as well. In a state of distress, Baron's face turned violet with spots, accusing Theo of causing this situation. Theo swiftly maneuvered behind Baron, whispering in his ear and remarking on the reason for Ivan's perceived weakness. Subsequently, Theo attacked Baron with a sword, prompting Baron to retaliate, only to find Theo had vanished. Theo reappeared, guiding Baron's attention to his new position. He acknowledged the effectiveness of the smoke effect generated by the giant shadow tortoise, causing trouble even for Dante. Determined to immobilize Baron completely, Theo resolved to render him unable to move until the end of their encounter. Baron weakened, expressing disbelief at his defeat. Theo swiftly struck with his sword, overcoming Baron. Witnessing this, Jace was taken aback and realized that Theo was not just a heavenly birth alchemist but a law of spirit energy alchemist, an expert capable of subduing a master within seconds. Theo addressed Jace, acknowledging him as Baron's disciple and inquired about his intentions. Jace, feeling overwhelmed, dropped to the ground and pleaded for mercy, professing his innocence and offering to do anything in exchange for his life. Despite his low level, Jace promised to be a valuable source of information about the Iron Sphere sect and highlighted his skills in amulet making, desperately asking for clemency from Theo. Theo contemplated Jace's desperation to survive and confirmed if Jace was indeed willing to do anything in exchange for his life. Jace reaffirmed his willingness to comply with Theo's requests. With a hint of amusement, Theo accepted Jace's plea and agreed to spare his life. Theo grinned and presented Jace with a medicine, explaining that it prevented mischievous behavior. He clarified that only he could provide the antidote and instructed Jace to retrieve it every 6 months. Theo extended this opportunity to Jace based on his promise to comply with any request. Theo questioned if Jace preferred this arrangement over losing his life, to which Jace quickly agreed to follow Theo's instructions. Jace inspected the pill, questioning if it contained poison. He doubted Theo would resort to poisoning him, as it would be quicker for Theo to use his skills to end his life directly. Meanwhile, Theo reminisced about a past experience in Gio's cave, reassuring himself that the pill was not as toxic as the treacherous fifth poison. Jace felt a sudden impact as the pill absorbed his energy, causing him distress. He questioned the nature of the medicine Theo had given him, feeling the effects take hold. Theo mentioned rumors he had heard about Elder Baron killing numerous alchemists and stealing their Dharma tools. Theo inquired about the contents of a bottle and proceeded to open it. Jace, taken aback, warned Theo as smoke began to emanate from the bottle. Jace covered his mouth and was coughing. He chastised Theo, labeling him a stupid fool, and explained that the bottle was a Dharma tool that released poison if not frozen correctly according to the correct procedure. Jace criticized Theo for opening the bottle without understanding its proper usage, deeming him careless as an alchemist. Jace expressed concern about the antidote for the poison pill he ingested. In a moment of panic, Jace voiced his distress, fearing the worst. Theo reassured Jace, explaining that the poison from the emergency bottle was of a lesser potency. Theo remarked on Jace's loyalty upon hearing his plea for Theo's safety. He then handed Jace an item and instructed him to accompany him to his residence to learn how to correctly handle the object. Jace, visibly shaken, agreed and affirmed his understanding of the task. Juno took a break after sweeping. Juno noted that it had been a year since the last unusual person had been brought in. At the same time, Theo asked Jace for his opinion on a low-class amulet he had crafted. Jace responded enthusiastically, praising Theo and calling him amazing. Theo expressed satisfaction at having significantly strengthened his Dharma tools, despite feeling a bit disappointed. He proposed heading to the Iron Sphere sect. Jace agreed, acknowledging the current suspicions due to Elder Baron's absence. Theo mentioned his ability to disguise himself and operate at the 7th stage of Dan development, a level lower than his actual level, without drawing attention. Jace confirmed the strategy, agreeing that it was a plausible approach. Theo decided to alter his appearance to resemble someone at the 7th stage of Dan development. In Jace's thoughts, he was astonished by how powerful Theo is. Theo's disguise was so convincing that they truly appeared to be at the 7th stage of Dan development. Jace couldn't help but blame this extreme deception for the unfortunate fate of his Master Baron, who had no other option but to meet his demise. Theo decided it was time to proceed with their plans. He expressed eagerness to uncover the extent of wealth accumulated by Baron throughout the years. Edgar made an announcement, welcoming everyone to the Iron Sphere sect. He introduced himself as Elder Edgar, responsible for educating new disciples. Edgar noted that their presence signified the recognition of their skills. However, he emphasized that being part of the Iron Sphere sect meant the end of leisure and comfort, as they were now part of the sect's troops. Edgar continued his address, informing the disciples that they were now the lowest-level members of the sect. With no one beneath them, they were tasked with various chores and serving the senior masters, and senior brothers. Despite the demanding tasks, they would only receive minimal spirit stones. Edgar stressed the importance of personal effort and skill development. The disciples acknowledged their understanding, and Edgar proceeded to assign their upcoming tasks in order. A man approached Theo and correctly identified him. The man mentioned that Jace had requested Theo's presence and inquired if Theo had any specific tasks in mind. Theo expressed a desire to focus on cultivating sacred herbs if possible. The man acknowledged Theo's request but warned that the master in charge was selective, leading to many individuals being dismissed. Theo reassured the man that he was willing to accept the challenge and expressed gratitude for the opportunity. The man designated Theo as a cultivator, different from the role of an alchemist. He mentioned assisting Theo on behalf of Jace. Theo assured the man that he would inform Jace of their conversation. Theo contemplated the landscape, intrigued by the widened spacing of the sacred herbs to artificially enhance their age. Recognizing that intensively gathering soil energy was essential to aging the herbs, he pondered the solitary presence of energy in the area. Theo speculated that the focus on cultivating within a broad area required concentrated attention. He concluded that this task would be well suited to his abilities. Theo inquired about the presence of someone in the area. The master of the cultivation area, Max, responded by questioning Theo's intentions. Theo then introduced himself as a new recruit assigned to the role of a cultivator. Max acknowledged Theo's statement with a brief affirmation. Theo approached Elder Max, seeking guidance on his tasks in the area he was assigned to. Max, initially a bit flustered, advised Theo to take it easy. While observing Theo, Max seemed to be pondering something. Theo wondered if Max had discerned his advancement technique, despite Theo intending to appear to be at the 12th stage of heavenly birth. Elder Max, with a serious demeanor, addressed Theo directly, causing Theo some concern. Theo worried about the possibility of Max seeing through his deception and contemplated drastic actions. However, to Theo's surprise, Max unexpectedly complimented Theo on his appearance, even comparing him favorably to the sect leader. Despite Max's vision being impaired due to age, he expressed his admiration for Theo's handsome looks. Theo, taken aback, responded with a simple acknowledgement and gratitude. Max commented on Theo's appearance, suggesting that a useful individual had arrived after a long time. He offered to read Theo's fortune, but Theo politely declined the offer. Despite Theo's refusal, Max expressed regret, mentioning his talent for reading people's fortunes. Max provided Theo with instructions to memorize a certain book within 3 days, emphasizing the importance of being able to work effectively. He mentioned that Theo would receive his work on the 4th day, and that failure to memorize the task would result in the inability to work or remain in the area. Max also directed Theo to utilize any available empty rooms for accommodation and advised him to show respect to the 2 other seniors present. As Max grew tired and sleepy, he indicated that he did not wish to be disturbed, bidding farewell until they met again in 4 days. Theo responded with a simple acknowledgement, wishing Max a good rest. Theo noted the detailed record of instructions, indicating that Max likely wrote it himself. Despite receiving training in harvesting sacred herbs and creating Dan pills from the first master, Theo had never learned about cultivating them before. This new task intrigued him. Feeling confident that he had memorized the entire book of instructions, Theo pondered the idea of getting started on the plan, especially since no one was watching him. Theo leaped and retrieved a cape from his pouch, transforming his appearance into that of Baron from the Iron Sphere sect. Jace, upon seeing Theo, acknowledged his presence. Now disguised as Baron, Theo commended Jace for providing detailed information about the Iron Sphere sect and Elder Baron, which allowed him to seamlessly blend in. Jace humbly responded that it was nothing, mentioning that Theo had spared his life, so it was only fair to reciprocate the favor. Theo noted the presence of a secret safe accessible only to the elders, containing numerous spirit stones and dharma tools. Expressing satisfaction with their progress, Theo reiterated the abundance of spirit stones and dharma tools stored in the area, indicating that they had achieved their objective to some extent. Jace politely addressed Theo as senior before correcting himself and calling him elder, indicating a pressing issue. Theo inquired about the nature of the problem, to which Jace explained that upon his return, the sect leader questioned why Baron had not accompanied him back. As a result, the sect leader personally requested Baron's presence. The retainer informed the sect leader that Elder Baron was requesting an audience. The sect leader instructed the retainer to allow Baron to enter. Upon entering, Baron greeted the Iron Sphere sect leader, Roy, noting that it had been a while. Roy expressed pleasure at seeing Baron again and offered his favorite nectar liquor for enjoyment. Baron graciously thanked Roy for the gesture. Roy expressed his concerns to Baron, admitting that he had been worried when Baron left without notice, expecting him to return promptly. However, he was surprised that Baron had only returned now. Baron acknowledged the inconvenience he had caused the sect leader. He mentioned that Jace, who returned earlier, had informed him of the situation, indicating that Roy seemed curious about something. Roy expressed his concern to Baron about his sudden disappearance before the event, questioning why he wouldn't be worried. In Baron's thoughts, he pondered the reference to an event and speculated that something must have transpired between the sect leader and Elder Wang, as Jace had not mentioned anything about it. Baron reassured Roy by pointing out that he had indeed returned. Roy acknowledged the truth in Baron's statement. Roy reassured Baron that there was no point in blaming him for the situation, emphasizing the importance of his timely return. He mentioned that preparations had been progressing slowly in Baron's absence and that he had hired many new disciples. Roy inquired if Baron had seen the new disciples on his way there. Baron responded that he had no interest in the new recruits, so he did not pay attention to them. Baron contemplated the meaning behind the preparations and the mass selection of disciples, wondering if it was in preparation for something significant. Roy referred to the new disciples as newly hatched chicks, reminiscing about how Baron himself was once in a similar position when he joined the group. He acknowledged that most new disciples would not survive, but among them, some would emerge as powerful beings like an Imugi, great lizard/lesser dragon, hornless ocean dragon, or sea serpent, just like Elder Wong and Baron. Baron connected the mention of the troop to the mysterious event that had been alluded to earlier. Baron solemnly stated that a war was approaching. Roy agreed, noting that this upcoming war would be entirely different from the previous one. He mentioned that in the past conflict, most of the forces were aligned with their side, regardless of their political affiliations. Roy shared with Baron that he had witnessed the leaders and elders of the Theo family from Choxin fall into a fatal trap not long ago. He attributed their demise to the changing currents of the situation. Roy expressed satisfaction that they would now be taking over the Theo family's spirit stone mine. Baron acknowledged Roy's thorough planning in this endeavor. Baron expressed his anticipation and excitement at the prospect of confronting and defeating the members of the Justice sect. He connected the lack of people from the Theo family from Choxin going to the Lone Spirit with the ongoing preparations for the upcoming war. Roy inquired about the increased concerns he had due to not seeing Baron. Baron apologized for inconveniencing Roy, explaining that all his actions were geared towards preparing for the impending war. Baron informed Roy that he would be departing, intending to visit the sacred flower treasury to make final preparations for the upcoming war. Roy chuckled and expressed his contentment, feeling reassured by Baron's presence and looking forward to the upcoming events. Theo anticipated an impending blood purge in Yangzhou. Rumors suggested that the justice and evil sects and families were engaged in fierce competition against each other. Juliana's family, being a family of immortals, should fare well in the upcoming war. However, feeling detached from the situation, he resolved that whatever happens will happen. Theo decided to take the wealth accumulated by Baron and disappear, distancing himself from the impending conflict. Theo marveled at the opportunity to witness sacred flowers and access the warehouse reserved for elders and those of higher rank. He noted the strict boundaries and regulations in place within the sect, emphasizing the exclusivity and control maintained over such areas. The retainers greeted Elder Baron respectfully. Baron instructed them to open the sacred flower treasury as he needed to retrieve some items. The retainers promptly agreed to follow his orders and proceeded to open the treasury as requested. Theo was surprised that it required 4 Law of Spirit Energy alchemists to open the treasury, indicating the value of the items stored within. An elder man instructed Baron to follow only his steps inside the treasury. Baron acknowledged his compliance with the instructions. Theo marveled at the fact that the treasury appeared to be only about 2 rooms wide, yet it contained a vast subspace within. This observation led him to conclude that the Iron Sphere sect was not one to be underestimated, as they possessed impressive capabilities and resources. The elder man announced their arrival and informed Baron that he should know how to open the door, hence he would only guide him up to that point. Baron acknowledged the instructions. Theo felt anxious as he realized he didn't know how to open the door. He was concerned as he had not been informed about this by Jace. The elder man noticed Baron's unease and inquired if there was a problem. Baron reassured him, responding that there was no issue. Theo thought about using the emergency bottle to open the door, realizing that if his identity was exposed, he would have to confront 4 Law of Spirit Energy alchemists and the entire Iron Sphere sect. Suddenly, a thought struck him regarding the emergency bottle. Finally, he figured out how to open the door. With a sense of relief, the treasury was successfully opened. Theo completed his task at the treasury place. A retainer wished him well to take care. Baron acknowledged the completion of the job. Theo believed that with this action, Baron would vanish from the world. Theo chuckled to himself, pondering the expression the sect leader would have upon discovering Baron's disappearance. Theo lay peacefully at the foot of Mount Manhwa, reflecting on the tranquility of the surroundings. It was difficult to envision that a war was on the horizon. Believing that Lord Max favored him, Theo decided to practice there for the time being. He saw it as an opportunity to refine the 6th form of destruction sword arts while also learning cultivation methods, effectively achieving 2 goals at once. As a man approached, Theo wondered about his identity. The cultivation area was off-limits to ordinary disciples, prompting Theo to question if it might be Yona, one of Max's disciples. The disciple confronted Theo, admonishing him for slacking off as a disciple of the Great Iron Sphere sect. Theo responded, explaining that he had just completed his tasks and was taking a break. Perplexed, he inquired about the disciple's identity. The disciple, surprised by Theo's apparent lack of recognition, demanded to know Theo's name and affiliation within the sect. Theo recognized the approaching man as great senior brother Jude and apologized for any perceived rudeness. He introduced himself as Theo from the cultivation area. Jude acknowledged Theo's completion of his cultivation work and advised him not to let others witness his negligence in the future. Theo accepted the advice, promising to remember it moving forward. Theo questioned Jude about his presence in the cultivation area, which was restricted for ordinary disciples. Jude, taken aback, asserted his status as the great disciple of the sect, stating that there was no place he couldn't enter. Theo, understanding the situation, expressed his lack of awareness due to his recent arrival in the area. Theo pondered that Jude, being the son of the sect leader, might be secretly harvesting sacred herbs. He sensed that Jude was plotting something. Jude, blushing, forgave Theo for his ignorance about his status. He then inquired about the whereabouts of junior sister Yona. Theo admitted he didn't know Yona's location, mentioning that despite working in the cultivation area for over half a month, he had never crossed paths with her. Jude expressed his initial impression that Theo was fortunate to work in the cultivation area, only to change his mind upon learning more about Theo's situation. He remarked that Theo seemed pitiful, buried in the soil. He simply stated that he liked his life in the cultivation area just fine. Jude scoffed at Theo's contentment with mowing and weeding grass, attributing it to never having seen Yona's face. He insinuated that Theo would be significantly more satisfied once he laid eyes on her. Curious, Theo inquired if Yona was truly that attractive. Jude amusedly laughed at Theo's question, emphasizing that Yona was renowned as the most beautiful woman in the Iron Sphere sect. Jude expressed his surprise at how the daughter of the Lord of the cultivation area could be so beautiful. Theo seemingly understands his point. Jude then mentioned feeling disadvantaged because Yona lived in the built-in home in the cultivation area, making it difficult for him to secretly catch a glimpse of her. Theo inquired about Jude's ability to access any place as the great disciple. Jude then requested Theo to keep his arrival a secret from both the Lord and Yona, promising a favorable position in return. However, their conversation was interrupted by a woman's scream calling for senior brother. Jude, surprised, responded to the call, recognizing the voice as Yona's. Yona reprimanded Jude for secretly coming to the cultivation area again despite her previous warning. She threatened to inform the sect leader immediately. Jude blushingly tried to explain, claiming it was a misunderstanding. He shifted the blame to Theo, stating that the new guy had lost his way, and he had purposely brought him there. Yona identified Theo, to which he confirmed his identity and greeted her politely as senior sister. Yona explained that the sect being located on the mountain made it understandable for newcomers to get lost, but she advised Theo to refrain from inconveniencing Jude in the future. Theo agreed to abide by her advice. Jude interjected, insisting that he was fine and could bring Theo back if he lost his way again. Yona thanked Jude for bringing Theo to the cultivation area and requested him to return. Blushing, Jude agreed and acknowledged the instruction. Theo observed Jude's behavior and remarked that Jude seemed infatuated. Yona then commented that Jude must have troubled Theo quite a bit. Theo, feeling a bit flustered, denied that Jude had been a bother. Yona mentioned that Theo must have been given some books by her father. She instructed Theo to come to her the next day to learn about cultivation work. Theo acknowledged her instructions. Theo considered Yona to be a sensible person, unlike her father. He resolved to learn how to cultivate sacred herbs properly the next day. Theo felt sorry for him, realizing that Jude had fallen for someone challenging to win over. Yona stopped Theo in his tracks and questioned him about his abilities, catching him off guard. Surprised by her question, Theo's mind raced with thoughts. He couldn't believe that she might have noticed his advancement technique. Theo was astonished to realize that Yona, whom he thought was a heavenly birth alchemist, was actually an enlightened yin and yang practitioner, a higher level than his law of spirit energy proficiency. Theo responded, claiming ignorance to Yona's inquiries. Yona, not convinced, remarked that Theo didn't seem deaf and questioned why a law of spirit energy alchemist like him would pretend to be at Dan development and come to the cultivation area. Theo realized that Yona had seen through his facade. He marveled at her perceptiveness, wondering about the extent of her abilities. Theo explained that he came to the cultivation area out of interest in learning how to cultivate sacred herbs. He mentioned that the area's energy and tranquility allowed him to focus on his training. Yona, with authority in her voice, expressed her uncertainty about trusting Theo and questioned if he could provide a reason why she shouldn't kill him. Theo questioned the severity of killing someone simply for concealing their level, drawing a parallel to Yona disguising herself as a heavenly birth practitioner and staying in the area. Yona defended her actions, stating that she disguised her skills to avoid causing trouble. Theo maintained that he did the same, emphasizing that his intentions were similar to hers. Yona, scratching her head, made a decision. She instructed Theo to set up his room next to where she lived, stating that she would personally keep an eye on him. She warned Theo that any slight sign of suspicion would result in severe consequences. Theo agreed to follow her instructions. Theo reflected on Yona's tough exterior, recognizing that she simply wanted to protect her loved ones from harm. He believed that deep down she was a warm person. Theo, while training with manuals, expressed his thoughts that it's too much. He pondered the number of alchemists Baron had potentially killed to gather such a vast collection of spirit stones. Theo considered the untitled books, each containing someone's vision. He speculated that Baron had gathered only the most useful visions among those he had stolen. Intrigued by the technique, Theo contemplated trying it out for himself. Theo discovered a remarkable ability to create a clone using just a small amount of his spiritual energy. The book he found mentioned that even an enlightened yin and yang alchemist's spread energy would go unnoticed. Puzzled, Theo wondered why Baron hadn't employed this technique. As he delved deeper, he learned about the challenge, controlling the clone consciously. There was a risk of being caught, as at times one could end up frozen like a doll while using the technique. An idea sparked as Theo considered controlling the clone by dividing his consciousness using the chant of black ice, similar to executing destruction sword arts. Excitedly, Theo remarked that he believed this technique was ideal for someone like him who had honed the chant of black ice. Pleased with his discovery, he decided to name the unnamed technique Alter Ego. Theo realized that someone must be monitoring his chi once again. Desiring to practice the second half of the destruction sword's arts forms since he had advanced to the law of spirit energy some time ago, he pondered his predicament. Feeling restricted by being observed, he contemplated if there was an alternative approach to training without the constant surveillance. Theo inquired if Yona was inside, to which she responded by asking what he needed. Theo noted the difference from when Yona displayed her killing aura earlier. He began to understand why Jude had been drawn to her. Yona prompted Theo to share what he wanted to discuss, questioning if he had come with something specific in mind. Theo expressed his intention to practice, to which Yona questioned why he needed to seek her out for that purpose. She mentioned that unless he intended to steal sacred herbs to consume, she was indifferent to how he honed his powers and encouraged him to proceed with his training as he pleased. Theo clarified that he would be practicing his swordsmanship and was concerned that he might disturb her in the process. Yona inquired about the type of swordsmanship Theo intended to practice. Theo, being secretive about the details, mentioned it was a special form of swordsmanship he couldn't divulge. However, considering Yona's wariness towards him, he thought it best to inform her and seek her permission. Yona acknowledged his practice, but added that she had one condition. Yona declared that she would observe Theo's practice, stating that she couldn't allow him to freely wield his sword without knowing his intentions. She questioned if he agreed with this cautionary approach. Yona emphasized that if Theo couldn't comply, she wouldn't permit his training. She expressed skepticism about whether this so-called special swordsmanship could truly be learned just by observing for a short period. Not wanting to reveal Theo Master's special swordsmanship, knowing that without the chant of black ice, it would be challenging for Yona to grasp the destruction sword's arts. Despite his reservations, he agreed to let her observe his practice. He cautioned Yona about the strength of the technique and advised her to be cautious not to get ensnared by it. Yona, curious about Theo's capabilities, contemplated observing his practice. Theo executed the first form of destruction sword's arts with the flying swallow energy strike, followed by the second form water cross counterattack and the yin and yang junction. As a result, a large tree was slashed by his sword. Yona observed Theo's display and marveled at his skill, acknowledging his remarkable abilities. She realized that no technique within the Iron Sphere sect could match the prowess displayed in his swordsmanship. Theo unleashed the fifth form, Dark Countercurrent, and proceeded to the second half of the arts with the seventh form, Touch of Mist. With his sword skills, he managed to cut the big tree into pieces. Utilizing these forms required a significant amount of spiritual energy, but found them to be highly effective in practice. Yona admired Theo's exceptional swordsmanship, recognizing its impressive nature. She had her own vast spiritual energy, feeling it was underutilized compared to Theo's remarkable skills. Theo, feeling inadequate, expressed his concern that his lack of skill might have inconvenienced her. However, Yona reassured him, stating that the techniques he displayed were truly excellent. Yona pointed out that there must have been a significant reason why Theo was so eager and impatient to practice. Theo expressed gratitude for her understanding and acknowledged that the technique was challenging for him. He admitted that he had only scratched the surface of mastering it and emphasized the need for dedicated practice to ensure the valuable technique was not wasted. Yona, growing impatient, expressed frustration at Theo's statement about practicing diligently. She mentioned that he had been secluded in his room every night for a month, yet she had attempted to follow his technique without any progress. Yona found it frustrating that despite her efforts, there was no advancement with the technique. Yona heard someone approaching and hurried outside to find Theo. She asked if he was going to practice that day, to which Theo responded that it was a different task this time. Yona offered to observe him, even though she didn't know the nature of the activity. Theo appreciated her offer and mentioned that he had a favor to ask. Curious, Yona inquired about the favor. Theo cryptically replied, asking Yona to guess which one of him was the real him. Yona confidently pointed to Theo and identified him as the real one among his clones. Surprised, Theo asked how she knew. Yona continued to point to the correct Theo among the clones, stating that it was too easy. She challenged him to create more clones to test her skills, confident that she would still be able to identify the real Theo. Theo inquired about how Yona was able to identify the real him among the clones. Yona explained that she had become accustomed to this technique. She suggested that it might be more beneficial for him to focus on practicing his swordsmanship instead. Theo acknowledged the value of the cloning technique and expressed his intention to learn it, aiming to practice until he could deceive Yona. Curious, Yona asked if he believed he could achieve that goal. Theo mentioned that this time would be challenging as he had increased the number of clones to 3. Yona remarked that he must have never experienced the harsh realities of the world, stating that even if he made 100 clones, they would be of no use to her. She proposed confirming whether this was true or not and then paused, suggesting they make a bet. Theo expressed intrigue at the idea of a bet. Yona outlined the terms. If she could identify the real Theo, she would win. Curious, Theo asked about the stakes if Yona emerged victorious. She replied that she would like to learn his swordsmanship technique.